All right, so you take a look at our only instance variable, which is a die array, and I called it dice, and it equals a new die array that's too long. So I had one default constructor. If someone doesn't provide any information and they just ask for a new pair of dice, I assume they want two 6-sided dice. And so I'll just, into the first slot in the array, I'll put a new die, and into the second slot, another new die, using the default constructor. If they decide that they want a pair of dice with a certain number of sides, then I will just call on the new die with a certain number of sides and the new die with a certain number of sides. A third option for a constructor would be to have them provide the number of sides and then two initial values, one for each die. But I decided I didn't want to do that one. But I could have easily added that one on also. Now to roll. I figured when you roll the dice, you frequently want to change the values, but you frequently want to know the total on the dice. For most games, you roll 2 dice and you're trying to figure out what the total is. And so I just called on dice 0, which is the first die, dot roll. That rolls the first one. Then dice 1, that's the second die, roll that one. And then, since they both return their values, I just put a plus sign in between them to add them together and return that. So it's made very nice. You shouldn't have any random anything in here. You shouldn't have tried to do int math.random plus another one. The die class has already taken care of how to roll one die. All your pair of dice class should do is call on the roll subroutine for both of them. Notice how you have a roll subroutine for a pair of dice and you have a roll subroutine for one single die. They both, even though they have the same name, they do different things. And the way you can tell what they do is based on the object that comes before them. So if you have a pair dot roll, it would do this. If you have a single die dot roll, it would do the one that we already did before. Yeah, Albert.
Well, if the person puts in like two existing die as parameters, shouldn't like they return a pair of dice with those two die as in the array?
So providing parameters is something you would do in a static subroutine. And so you could create static subroutines where someone passes in dice that already exist and rolls those. But in this case, we're trying to make a pair of dice that doesn't have any static subroutines in it, that they're all, all non-static. They're all going to be member subroutines, member methods in this one right here. So we're trying to avoid getting information from the parameters unless we absolutely need it, such as in the number of sides. So in this case right here. So it's a different way of thinking of things, which is radically different than what we've done before. So, I mean, it's going to take a while to get used to. But over the course of this chapter, you should feel yourself seeing more and more the advantages of being able to do it this way. I also decided, what if someone wants to know the actual individual numbers on these dice? I could just return the dice array to them, but that would give them an array of dice. What if they just want an array with two numbers? They don't care about the dice objects. They don't want to have to loop through and call on the get current value for those dice objects. They just want two numbers, so that they can print them out easily. So another subroutine I might add would be public, and it would return an int array instead, and it would be get dice values. And then for this one right here, I would create, I'm going to do it without a loop, but I would say return dice 0 dot get current value, comma, dice. So currently this isn't going to work, but I'll go back. Get current value. Whoops, not get class. Get autocomplete. Get current value. And then remember how you can put the curly braces around it, and then it will just create a nice array for you to be able to return. The only bad thing, this is too long to go on one line. Let me hit return. The only bad part of this is if you want to use this notation where you just put the curly braces around it, you still have to create a new array. There's no array to create that exists. So I'll say a new int array, and that's going to be the one it is. So a better way to do this, and the way you'll probably want to do it when you're doing the Yahtzee assignment tonight, is you'll This is when you're going to have 5 dice. You don't want to have to type this out and do dice 0, dice 1, dice 2, dice 3, dice 4. Just do a loop. Just create the array and then loop through. You're doing the same thing for every single die. So if you just redo all these things with a loop, let's change a couple of them. For example, this constructor right here. The 2 lines look almost identical. The only difference is the 0 and the 1. That looks like it should have been done with a loop. Let's see what it would look like with a loop. For int I equals 0, I less than dice dot length, I plus plus, dice I is equal to a new die. So that is a better version of the constructor. Even though it looks a little bit longer now, it has this loop, but now it's easier to generalize to more dice. Like if you decide to create a new object, or maybe you decide to rename this whole, you say, you know what, it's kind of a waste to do something that's a pair of dice. Maybe it should just be a group of dice. And when the person constructs it, they decide how many dice they would want. So then you would definitely have to add something to the constructor, and you wouldn't always have it being a new die array of size 2. For now, this is fine, but when you're doing the Yahtzee one, then you should do a loop. I don't want to see any of this on the Yahtzee one. Dice 2 equals this, and then dice 3, and then dice 4, just because you're going to have 5 dice that you'll be rolling all at the same time. Take advantage of loops so that you don't repeat the nearly exactly the same thing over and over and over again. So you would do the same thing. I could even just copy and paste this pretty much exactly how it is. I'm just going to have to add num sides down here at the end. Num sides right there. Same thing right here. I would have to, looks like for this one I'm going to have to go through and roll all the dice and then go through and add them up. You could do that all at the same time as long as you have a counting variable to keep track of the total. You just set it to 0 and go through, and as you're rolling the dice, add them all up. This one right here wouldn't be any different. Get dice. This right here, once again, it would be better to put in a loop. So make this look more like a loop. Same with the 2 string. Do this in such a way that looks more like a loop. I'll post the current version of pair of dice on the website. I'll also post the die object on the website. But the homework for tonight, in addition to reading section 5.2, is to create yahtzeedice.java. And it's just going to have 5 dice that you roll all at the same time. So there's still 5 more minutes for you to get this working. And if anyone has some last minute questions, I'll come around and answer those.